And then we can officially get started here. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. Today is April 19. We're here at noon in Toronto, but yes, it's cold because we got snow here yesterday. So unfortunately, spring is taking its time to get to us. But I just want to welcome you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy exam period and wherever you may be to join us to learn more about the REACH Alliance. So today, I will share our slides here. So we're welcoming our alumni, Kanishka Sikri, to speak to you about her experience at the REACH Alliance, especially as a UTSC grad and joining fellow students there today. Our agenda today is to give you an understanding of the REACH Alliance, our history, our vision, and then an overview of what the researcher experience is. And then we'll go into kind of the example of one who has lived through not just one case study, but 2 case studies here at REACH. And Kanishka will share her experiences. And then I will get a chance to share about the details of how you can apply and some of the application process. And then we'll have a time for question and answer. So 2 things before we get started is 1, live transcription is turned on so that for those that need to access it, you can turn that on your settings on Zoom. And second, there is a Q&A box in Zoom that you can submit your questions throughout the presentation, and then we'll have a chance to answer them either written or at the end during our Q&A. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Maren McLeod, the Executive Director of REACH and a REACH alum, who will share with you a little more about our history and the process.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Moni and Kanishka. Thank you so much for being here. As well, thanks to all of those of you joining us on the line and that will watch the recording after the fact. I think it's it's a testament to the strong students that we get from UTSC that we do a special info session for you all. And so we really look forward to receiving your applications. I mean, you'll hear from Kanishka soon, but we can attest to the fact that she's truly one of our most valued and strongest alum. And so we do hope that you consider applying and that this info session provides you with the information that you need to do so. I'll start by just providing a little bit of background in terms of how the REACH Alliance came to be and what it is that we do specifically. So we'll start with this quote: "Disaggregate the data and we find that our statistical national successes are masking moral and practical failures. People are left behind simply because they live in rural communities, urban slums, conflict zones, as part of Indigenous groups, with disabilities, or because they are girls." And I think this idea of being left behind is really at the core of what we do at the REACH Alliance. So we are inspired by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is quite unequivocal in its aspiration that no one is left behind. So 100% inclusion, 0% exclusion. And it's something that, as you can see across our portfolio of case studies, is really, really at the center of all of the research that we do. So we were founded in 2015 here at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. And since the beginning, we've been in partnership with the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. So if you haven't come across the MasterCard Center before, please do check out their website. They do a lot of great work and are an excellent example of private sector ownership of the SDG agenda. As I mentioned, we are inspired by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the SDGs. If you're not, please do take a moment to review the website and learn a little bit more about these global commitments that are set to be achieved by 2030. That's the Sustainable Development Agenda. There are 17 goals. They touch on all aspects of human and planetary life. So we encourage you to take a look and learn a little bit more if you haven't already come across them in your studies. We are a student-driven and faculty-mentored research and leadership initiative. There's a couple of key important elements that I will unpack in that statement. One being that it is truly a student-led initiative. So this isn't sort of a traditional academic situation where you're working as a research assistant, for example, you really are in the driver's seat from start to finish of this project. So from the very beginning, in terms of the case study selection process that happens, all the way through the research process and the report writing, you are really the owner and the architect of that work. You are absolutely being mentored and supported by your faculty, but it really is an opportunity for you to take ownership over a topic that you're passionate about and something that you're interested in. The other thing I want to call out here is that we aren't just a research initiative. We are also focused on developing you as a professional and positioning you for an impactful role after you graduate from the University of Toronto and after you go through the REACH program. So we have students in the program that are in early years of their undergraduate education, as well as master's students and upper year PhD students. I think the fact that we are able to recruit students at such different levels of their studies is a testament to the fact that REACH is offering something different, something that you probably haven't had the opportunity to be exposed to, and some skills that maybe you wouldn't glean otherwise. Which we'll tell you a little bit more about. And then finally, our research is, all of our case studies are available on the website, so you can get a sense for the geographic focus, and you can also filter by sustainable development goal. But it's also worth noting that we've been published in many leading outlets, so the Lancet, the World Health Organization Bulletin, the BMJ Global Health, Stanford Social Innovation Review, and elsewhere. So the research really is world-class and it is rigorous, and we do have a focus on knowledge translation and mobilization. The vision of the REACH Alliance is investigating how to get important stuff to everyone everywhere. Important stuff is in brackets because there's no one single product or service that we focus on. As I mentioned, we focus on all of the SDGs. So we have some tangible delivery, such as with money transfers, vaccines, energy access, internet connectivity, et cetera. And then some maybe less tangibles, such as access to justice or community governance. And again, you can see the full range of our research on the website, but it really is about finding a topic area that you are passionate about and that you are interested in and that you want to explore. Our mission is really grounded in the assumption that young people and young leaders have a role to play and generational ownership over the Sustainable Development Goals. Kanishka is a great example of someone that's out there actually making an impact. She's doing her PhD. She's clearly taking all of the skills and experience that she's gleaned through REACH and through her studies and putting herself in a position for impact. And I think that's something that REACH really does believe in and really does our best to help position you for that type of impact after you graduate. This is just a summary of most of our case study research. We've just actually over the last couple of weeks launched 7 new reports that aren't reflected on the map here. And I realize it's too small and blurry for you to actually see all of those details, but again, they are available on the website. I think the 2 important things to glean from this image are, one, the geographic spread of our research. So we've produced over 30 case studies in more than 20 different countries. And each year we often see a new case study geography added. So really the whole world is open for exploration when it comes to the REACH Alliance. The other thing I'll just quickly draw your attention to are the 3 institutional icons that you see on the map. While we were founded here at the University of Toronto in 2020, we began scaling our approach to 6 more universities around the world. So presently we have partnerships with the University College London and Oxford in the UK, and as well Tec de Monterrey in Mexico. And we're currently building relationships, and a partnership will soon be launched at an Africa-based institution, an Asia-based institution, and as well in Australia. So I share this because you become part of a global network, not only at the University of Toronto, but also would then have access to the students and faculty that are also leading REACH projects in these other institutions around the world. This is a very quick snapshot of the faculty mentors that are actively mentoring a team this year. Of course, there are many others that aren't listed on this slide, but just for this year, these are the folks we've engaged. We share this because I think it's important to recognize that we recruit faculty from a range of disciplinary backgrounds, such as law, medicine, public health, social work, political science, engineering, and everything in between. These really are some of the university's top scholars, and you have a very unique opportunity to work in a small group setting with one of these people. So I think this is another differentiator with the REACH Alliance projects, is that you do get that one-on-one almost time with some of the world's leading faculty. Equity, diversity, and inclusion is something that underpins all of the work that we do, from the recruitment of our students and faculty through the research process, and then of course into the communication, knowledge dissemination aspect of the project. A couple of years ago, we worked with the Anti-Racism and Cultural Diversity Office here at the University of Toronto to engage in a series of dialogues with our community. So our staff, our faculty, researchers, alumni, all participated in this discussion and co-created an equity, diversity, and inclusion charter that is available at the link on the bottom of the slide there. So we encourage you to take a look. It highlights the commitments and principles that we have committed to and co-created as a community. And that really do underpin all aspects of our project. Moni will share a little bit more about that in the application, but it's just something that we want to draw your attention to, given it's such a core piece of the work that we do. The program overview I will speak to now, and I'm sure Kanishka will fill in some of the more interesting details, but I will cover the key operational aspects for your benefit at this time. The research cycle is a 12 to 16 month process. So we are obviously recruiting students now. Applications close on Sunday. And then in June, we will onboard the new cohort, which will be roughly 32 students that will eventually make up 8 new research teams that will begin their research process over the summer. Faculty mentors work with you as researchers to come up with the case study topics that we study. So we get a lot of questions about how our case study topics are identified, and the answer is it's up to you as the active researcher cohort. So we'll provide some guidelines and some supporting information about how we assess different case studies for consideration, but it's ultimately up to you to bring the ideas forward, to pitch these ideas to the cohort of researchers and faculty, and to respond to questions that you'll be getting. It's a very rigorous process, and it goes on for the months of July and August. And then in September, case studies is a very democratic process. The case studies are selected based on a voting process that goes on end of summer and early into the fall. At that point, you'll be paired with your research team. Again, that's based on your preference. So you have an opportunity to identify which case study you're most interested in. While not every student gets their first choice, we do certainly take your preferences into consideration. At that time, you begin the secondary research process, and that's really in preparation for the research ethics application that you will be submitting. So each of our case studies does submit an REB protocol that is subsequently approved prior to the primary research that happens. What we mean by primary research is actually doing interviews. So the secondary research is the desk literature, and I know all of you have lots of experience with that type of research. Some of you may have some primary research experience, some of you may not. That's totally fine. We do have a lot of skills development workshops that we offer to prepare you for that particular part of the process. After you've conducted your interviews and done your secondary literature review, you work with your team of students and your faculty mentor to write a case study report. That report is the only required deliverable at the end of the research experience, and does sometimes become the basis for additional knowledge translation deliverables that you may decide with your team to create after the fact. So for example, many of our teams, as I mentioned, go on to produce peer-reviewed publications, write op-eds, infographics, etc. We are all about doing research that is positioned for impact here at the Reach Alliance. So we do have a dedicated communications team on staff that really helps support researchers in the knowledge translation mobilization aspect of the journey. So if that's something that interests you, it's certainly a core component of our program. 3 other sort of cross-cutting elements that I will speak to quickly are: 1, team performance coaching. So all of our research teams are paired at the beginning of the year in September for them with a performance coach that works with them for the duration of their project. The aim of the coaching is really twofold. So 1, it's to build your individual skills and leadership capacity so that when you come out of the Reach experience, you can easily transition into a leadership role in the public, private, or civil society space. It's also to maximize your contributions as a team, as a unit. So we recruit some of the world's top students to the program, but they're not always necessarily versed in how to work across disciplines and with folks from other parts of the university. So the hope is that with the coaching, you're able to get the most out of your team and also to be the most active contributor possible to the unit. The skills development series is something that happens on usually about a monthly basis, where we bring in some of our faculty mentors as well as experts in various topics, and offer these special training opportunities to you to help support you in the research process. So for example, last week we brought in a TEDx speaker coach to come in and talk to our alumni and researchers about how to present their research and how to present their experience and skills in different environments. So in a job interview setting, in a networking environment, or at a conference, for example. So again, our whole focus is really on your development, both as a researcher, but then especially as a leader, and helping prepare you for that next step, whether that be further studies or a role in one of the sectors. Lastly, the Global Alumni Network is something that we've been really doubling down on in the last 6 months or so. As I mentioned, now it's no longer only the University of Toronto that's involved in this network. It's got students now from Oxford, the University College London, and Tech, and we'll soon have students from 3 other universities around the world. There's an exclusive alumni portal that you gain access to after you complete your case study report, which shares job and event opportunities, as well as other news and information that we think is pertinent or salient to folks that are interested in the Sustainable Development Goals. There's also an AI-enabled networking platform that we are just now piloting that allows you to connect with researchers at the University of Toronto, but also at the other sites based on interest, skills, and desire to sort of build out your portfolio. This next slide is a visual representation of what I've just spoken about, so I won't spend too much time, but we just find it useful to outline this in a sort of a temporal sequence for your benefit. So we are, of course, as we know, recruiting students at the moment, and as well as some faculty mentors. The case study pitching process will begin in July, and that will carry through to September. At that point, you will be beginning your secondary research in preparation for your research ethics application. I should also mention, if you haven't done a research ethics application yet, don't worry. We offer a number of special sessions to prepare you for that, as well as put you in touch with alumni that have gone through that process. So it's not to worry if it's a new thing for you, but certainly a great skill to have. After your research ethics application is approved, you begin the primary research, which again are those key informant interviews with folks that are delivering programs with the aim to understand how and why are these programs working to reach the last mile. Finally, the experience culminates in writing of the research report, which will come in to us next June. At that time, you will also have an opportunity, as I mentioned, to dive into some other knowledge translation deliverables, should you be interested in doing so. So I just have two final slides here, and this is really just to offer you some examples of what the knowledge translation deliverables can look like. So as I did mention, there's a lot of peer-reviewed publications that come out of Reach Research, just given the rigor that the process does entail, and all of the research ethics applications really set you up well if you are interested in, for example, Kanishka, is pursuing a PhD. So if you're interested in further studies, publications can really help you in that domain. We've also published in sort of other outlets such as Stanford Social Innovation Review or the Hill Times on the far right, because in that case, the research team was really exclusively focused on policymakers. They were really trying to convey a message to Canada's policymakers. So we helped them pitch this op-ed for the Hill Times in order to do so. You can see all of our other outputs available on the website. Finally, I just want to draw your attention, because you're actually quite lucky in terms of timing. We do have our annual Reach Symposium happening this week on Thursday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern time on both days. The event invitation video is there if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the event page and registration link also available there. This is the first time that this event is actually open to the public and folks outside of the Reach Alliance community. So we're really excited to welcome you to the event. We've got some great speakers lined up that you can see on our website. For example, Mary Vaughan is the mayor of Freetown, Sierra Leone. If you haven't seen her TED Talk, it's pretty exceptional, and we're really excited to have her speaking and delivering keynote remarks on day one. But there are about 20 speakers that will be participating from across sectors. So can guarantee that you will find some element of the agenda to your interest for sure. So please do consider registering for the symposium this week. Amazing. And I think it's now my distinct pleasure to introduce Kanishka. So Kanishka has gone through the Reach experience actually, and just has brought such a unique perspective to us. And of course, representing UTSC, it's such an honor to have you here with us today, Kanishka. And really looking forward to your insights for the students here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maren, and thank you, Moni, too. I'm very excited and happy to be with all of you here today. I think that all of the participants that I'm seeing are new folks I don't know, which is exciting because there's a new cohort of students at UTSC that are interested in doing research like this. So as Maren said, my name is Kanishka. I'm currently a PhD student at York University, which is also in Toronto. And my research is more so focused on violence and thinking about violence as a sort of entry point to understand the ways that certain lives and worlds are marked to certain possibilities of violation. So my experience with REACH started during my time at UTSC. I was in what was then known as the Center for Critical Development Studies, and what is now, I believe it's changed into the Department of Global Studies. So they got their department accreditation, which is very exciting. But I'm sure that if you're at UTSC, which all of you are, you must be, because they're so diffused there, familiar with a lot of folks in political science and international development who have a lot of kind of cross affiliations within departments of science and even mathematics as well. So UTSC is a very kind of critical space to be in. And when I entered REACH, I was entering from that critical background. And I mean, I don't necessarily see criticality as like the end goal, but criticality as a tool so that we can live and imagine worlds where we don't need to be critical. And so I think that what you bring as UTSC students is, even if you're not in a critical program itself, being in UTSC, I'm sure that you have professors that are quite critical of their fields and domains and disciplines. But what I actually want to do is share my case study, and I want to kind of walk us through, not like so in depth, but a little bit of an understanding of what it is that we did. So whenever I'm trying to think about an opportunity and whether I want to engage in it or not, I like to think about what it is I'd like to carry with me when that opportunity ends. You know, when I was in my undergrad, I was reading a lot of feminist writings from people like Sarah Ahmed, who talks a lot about citation. Like, how do we take works with us and carry them on our backs to our future work? So I'm sharing this case study so you can get a sense of like what it is that I refer back to now that my REACH experience is quote unquote finished. So you have a sense of maybe my method of breath as I'm doing my work now. Where has REACH played in? What experiences and kind of insights did I gain from REACH? So I was a part of two different projects. One was the Women's Police Stations in India project, and this was kind of the traditional kind of REACH experience where you're recruited over the summer of 1 year and you spend a year doing your research, and then the latter part of the year into the second year you're publishing your deliverable. But I was also part of another case study or another project, and that was a partnership over the summer of while I was doing women's police stations with ITESO University in Mexico, and there we were looking at the digital fabrication laboratory, and we were thinking about the ways that youth are using different spaces in order to kind of combat and struggle with certain violences and issues within their communities. So I'll just be looking at the Women's Police Stations project because I think it may be the most useful as you're thinking about whether you want to participate or not, and how to create the best application. So this is a little bit of what it looks like. I mean, when I started REACH, I had no idea what the deliverable would look like. Like, being in my undergrad, I had no idea what a case study really was. And I was looking more, or I was conceptualizing REACH as more like a standard academic article. So the executive summary, I mean, is pretty much just like an abstract for the sake of conceptualizing. Where I want to start off is kind of this like violence against women. So when I was first recruited into REACH, that was over the summer. And so over June, July, and August, I think we first met end of June. we started doing our pitch sessions. And so I knew from the get-go that I was interested in violence. It's kind of been a theme throughout my life and my scholarly and my personal interests too. And so I knew that I wanted to look at violence. So violence is something that is like, very broad, and violence is defined very differently. And so I actually had a conversation with, I think it was Joe, like as soon as I entered the program, and Joe is like the founder of Reach. And I was like, I'm really interested in violence, but like, I'm not really sure where to go from here. And Joe had kind of like sat with me, and we kind of talked about like my writing samples that I'd submitted, my CV that I'd submitted, like what were kind of the trends that were emerging from my previous experiences, and how could I use violence as an angle to explore some of my own interests. So from there, I really narrowed into like racialized violence and particularly gendered violence. And I began looking specifically at violence against women, and more specifically, violence against racialized women. So my experience here was really like, I knew what it was I wanted to look at, but I didn't know the project or service itself. And so I actually started doing some research, and I had found the International Criminal Tribunal in the former Yugoslavia. And that's something that I had actually learned in one of my courses at UTSC. So I actually pitched that project, but there were some issues with it. There was a lack of good data. There were also some kind of more granular issues like access, it being a criminal tribunal, and cases actually being, fought and struggled with in court. And so that was not really rejected. Like stuff is not really rejected in Reach pitches. It's more so just like developed and refined, and you come to different projects. So then at that point, I was kind of at a loss of what project to look at. And I actually had a meeting with Mariana Prado, who's another Reach faculty. So like just in the beginning, I had meetings, and now at this point, I've worked with Joe, Erica, Mariana, Obidima, Raji, who's the faculty mentor for this project. So many faculty have played a role in this case study already. But back to my point, I had a meeting with Mariana, and she had mentioned women's police stations in Brazil. She was actually writing a paper about them, and that was her interest. And I had never really been interested in Brazil as the region. Like I was really interested in like Asia or like Eastern Europe. And so I tried to find where else women police stations were, also because there were kind of a lack of data that was really coming out of Brazilian stations. And then I found India. So India is where my ancestry is from. I'm very familiar with India and the Middle East. And so I had found more data in the Indian sector of women's police stations, and I had pitched that, and it kind of just went rolling. A lot of people were interested in that. And they went through the pitch session, and people indicated they were interested, and my pitch was voted as one of the final ones. And so that was kind of the pitching process. So it wasn't like I knew what it was that I wanted to necessarily look at. It was a very fluid process. And though I felt confused, I never felt lost. There was always support from Reach, which I think is really important, because I've been on a lot of research projects where I felt really lost, and I've had to kind of figure stuff out on my own, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But having these support networks there and being able to kind of, I don't like the term, but pick someone's brain and kind of bounce ideas off someone was really helpful as I was coming through with this. So that's a little bit just about kind of the introduction here. So violence against women was a sort of entry point, and then women's police stations were the sort of project or initiative that were doing something, supposedly doing something well to tackle this problem. So then we went into like secondary research, as Marin has spelled out for us. Our case study is a bit different because we had to, switch to online. This was in the middle of 2020 when we were applying to do our primary research. And so we don't really have that primary research component. People were also just getting used to like online interviews and online research. So our case study is a bit shortened and condensed, and it's more secondary in nature. But what I found the most fruitful for me at this point was actually having Rajeshri, who is the faculty mentor for this project, absolutely amazing. And she's actually an economist by training. And so coming from someone in critical development studies who had no idea how to analyze data, was not even interested in data really. Raji had given us training and stuff like R and NVivo. And we were really learning how to use data, less so as like the object of desire, but like data to tell certain stories, and figure out whose stories were missing, whose stories were absent and erased in the archive and erased in research, and then finding ways to amplify those stories and bring them to the center and not just allow them to occupy the margins. At this point, while we were doing the secondary research, I was just getting to know my team. My team are very interdisciplinary. We're all from different backgrounds. Two folks are from like health sciences and biology and somewhat law, and then one person is from like business management, and then there's me from like the social sciences and humanities. So we're a very diverse team. We all had an interest in different aspects of women's police stations, and so through our coaching throughout the summer and into the year, and we also had individual coaching as well, we really got to know what it was that, I mean, we got to know each other better, but what I think was really important was we got to know what it was that each of us wanted from this project. And then we worked to support one another in getting that. So, when I was thinking about what I wanted from Reach, I really wanted some sort of critique of criminal justice apparatuses to end violence against women. And I was really interested in how we could use this project as a means of understanding how many dominant systems of redress can further entrench violences that they attempt to mitigate. But other members of my team were more interested in kind of creating a new repository of data and doing a data analysis so that they could share it with different women's police stations in India. Others were more interested in learning and being able to actually engage in primary research and learning how to do interviews, how to be, I don't like the term, but sensitive, how to be, empathetic and know how to communicate with those who may be experiencing violence at the moment, and how to not further replicate and entrench violences as we do our research. So we all had different kind of desires from this project, and it was only by coaching and like actually spelling out what it was that we wanted, which is like, it's not necessarily all the time that you know what you want, but you uncover, you do different exercises, you communicate, and by the time we were at the point of writing this case study, we had all a very keen idea of what it is that we wanted to say and how we wanted to say it. And coaching was a big role in that. So I feel like I'm really rambling on. So I want to keep this a bit shorter because I'm sure you have many questions. But this is how our case study is kind of, developed. We use the data that women's police stations in India had and the government of India had. And then we kind of asked questions. So we posed as like inspectors in a sense, it's not the best word choice, in critiquing this data and trying to understand like for whose purposes this data has been created, who's been included in these data sets and so on. And then we have, so these are the questions here, and we have a little moving forward section. I think this is the really, important section. And even in the ITESO University, the Mexico project case study, we have a long lessons learned section. I think what Reach does really well, and what may really differ from the type of projects that you're currently working on, type of work you're doing in your coursework, is you're less focused on kind of the action steps and the praxis you want to develop going forward. And while this can be great in theory, right, when you're doing theoretical work, if we don't find ways to apply theory, to make theory more lived and fleshy, to find ways to, take what we learn and apply them, so to speak, it sounds very rudimentary, but a lot of, academic work does not do this. You end up maybe further duplicating the same problems that you may be trying to transform in your research. So if we just continue talking about violence, but we don't find strategies and tools that are being deployed that could be further refined and transformed, then how do we just keep enabling more violence to happen through our speech about it? So we had a great moving forward and lessons learned, and it was also a time for me to think about criminal justice a bit more critically, especially at this point where Black Lives Matter was really erupting in 2020. We had COVID, we had all of these many things and violences going on. So I'll leave it at that. That's kind of the end of the case study anyways. This is the research team, and this is our mentor Raji. So I wanted to also let me stop sharing. I wanted to also just mention a little bit of feedback that I had wished someone had given me when I was doing my application. So I'm not sure what a lot of you are looking at after your undergrad, but I would really recommend that even if you don't apply to REACH, but especially if you do, to contact a professor or a professional, maybe supervisor or something that you can build a relationship with. And I would really, really recommend that you work with them to create a good CV, and you do some interview prep. There's nothing that's been more useful for me than having somebody who knows the ins and outs of academia. This, of course, I developed later. I didn't have this person for REACH, but I find that there's nothing more helpful. So if there's a current course that you're in, I know the deadline is Sunday, but if there's a current course that you're taking right now, message the professor, ask them, I really want to apply to this program. Can you take a look at my CV? Can you help me prep some questions? I'm sure that especially if it's a course you're in and you're doing reasonably well, they'd be really interested in something like that. And I want to, if I just have a second more, to say that I think my biggest experience from REACH and the way that REACH has really kind of traveled to my work today is it's helped me figure out what I don't like to do as much as it's helped me figure out what I do like to do. Like it's only going through this sort of full cycle from pitching to writing your REB to doing lit reviews, data analysis, interviews, consolidation, writing, dissemination, like going through that full cycle that you can really become the type of person you need and that you want to be to allow your work to flourish. You really figure out what speaks to you, the methods you like, what desires and hopes you place in your work and research, whether you like working in teams, what type of teams, and all that stuff. So even if you may feel like REACH is a bit outside your domain or is not that much of interest, maybe you're not so much interested in producing a case study. I know I wasn't really when I first began, primarily because I didn't know what case study was. I think that REACH is worth applying for and participating in it just for that sort of granular knowledge that you can create about yourself, that you can acquire that sort of consciousness on. I don't think from my experience at UTSC and UFT more broadly, there's any other research project. Dissertations and theses don't even come close to that sort of experience. I don't think that there's really any projects like REACH that exist for this type of introspection that's really important as you're thinking about what's next after your undergrad. So I'll leave it at that. I know that was a bit long and rambly, but I'll pass it over to Moni. And yeah, I look forward to any questions any of you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kanishka. What a great way to demonstrate and use your case study to demonstrate the process. And great words to live by. And I think that there are resources, interview skills, and ability to kind of think more deeply about what your interests are, and finding the supports that you need to get guidance is always useful, whether for REACH and the REACH interview processes or any other process moving forward. So thank you so much for sharing. Kanishka, we will have more time for questions, and I know there have been some answered live, and I know Marin has to go right now, so we will have a chance to answer questions on our own. But I'll continue with our presentation, which is for those that are interested in applying and your interest has been piqued, to really get this depth and breadth of experience. It's true, there's very rare experiences at the university that allows you to be, as students, the principal investigator. It's usually reserved for faculty, and students can take part as research assistants, but REACH allows you, we're disrupting that academic paradigm by putting students as the principal investigators and the faculty are supporting. So it is a very different process, but it is what makes it challenging and very involved and engaged, but also the rewards can be, you reap from that process, what you put in. So I will go through some technical aspects in terms of the application process. So I am an alumni of the University of Toronto. I did my Master's of Public Health here, but I've been with the REACH Alliance now for 2 years. So I've seen the process kind of come through a couple of times, and got to meet Kanishka last year when she was part of all the recruitment interviews. So who can apply? And I know some questions were here about, can first years apply as social scientist, in the social sciences, are they eligible? And our answer is yes. Anybody that is a registered student at the University of Toronto next academic year for fall and winter is eligible to apply. So that's what makes REACH so unique as well, is that it is diverse in education level and also discipline. So as long as you're a registered student, you're welcome to apply. And you may not have the same experiences as everyone, but this slide also tells you we're not actually looking for discipline academic specific. We're looking for diversity, but we're looking also for cross-cutting values and traits and skills. And these are the traits in which we've been able to identify in terms of the skills needed for future work and skills needed for global competencies to develop. So this is a co-curricular activity. So we are looking for people that are able to prioritize. They can still keep up with their academic, grades and schoolwork while also taking on REACH. We're looking for people that are global citizens, are wanting to tackle some of, the world's pressing problems, and be part of the process of knowing how to do that in an interdisciplinary way. This is a team player collaborator process. So this is not just a group paper that you write and everyone writes their part and just mashes it together and submits. As Kanishka responded, everyone has a part in identifying what they can contribute and what they want to get out of the process, but a shared responsibility for the deliverable. So it is a very different way of looking at teamwork. And we have team coaches that will support the teams in really working together effectively, but also using your strengths. Communication is just an important tool, and because it involves so many people on a team, it requires a key skill to be able to prioritize and be able to talk also in different discipline languages. So and being open to listening. There's a lot of process in which, as outlined in that research cycle, that you'll hit roadblocks and there'll be many decisions to make as a team, but we're really looking for people that are not going to be paralyzed by that, but are going to be energized and will want to think creatively and strategically about how to troubleshoot. So this becomes an important skill set. And because you're going to be taking on, topics and processes that you may have never had exposure to, because, as engineers, they're doing humanities, qualitative studies work, and others that are used to doing humanities are doing business, they're studying business models. So part of that, the process is being willing to engage in new content and new skills that you may not have been exposed to or trained in your discipline. So that's part of being a lifelong learner. And Kanishka has followed the path into PhD and doing that for life in her education. And so I think it's so wonderful to see. And of course, we're looking for action oriented, because this is students that are leading the process and not relying, the faculty are only playing advisory roles. So we are looking for students that are willing to take action and do what is needed in order to accomplish the goal. So all of these are detailed on our website about the traits. And so I encourage you to look through that before you submit your application. In terms of what is the actual application process, we have an apply now button on our website, and it takes you to an online form. And on that form, you'll have to answer 4 short questions. There is a word count max, and so if you can take a look at those 4 questions, we're just looking to understand what is your experience with any research, or whether it's for school, like you may not have direct research, but at least skills and what your interest levels are in developing these skills. And then we do ask for supplementary required documents, and we've asked to save it in a single PDF. So if you can save your resume, your unofficial transcript from U of T. So your grades may not be in, we understand, but at least a showing of your skill sets, of your courses and the grades that are listed there. It just gives us a sense of what your coursework has been. And then this is what's unique about REACH, is that we ask for annotated transcript. So this is where you can submit the story of how you select your courses, what you learn from your courses. It helps us to understand who you are as a student, and in a narrative way. So you can do that individually by picking 5 courses, or you can do that collectively. And so that's the annotated transcript. And then new this year is a co-curricular activity list. We would just like a chance to see what you're already committed to in the next year and the kinds of activities you're already going to participate in a month, which REACH could be one of them. The deadline is this Sunday before midnight, so you still have chance, and you don't need to find or ask, faculty for references. All of the information that you provide for your application is produced by the students. So there's still lots of time for you to submit. We do ask that practically you have to submit in one go, because you can't create a profile and come back to it. So as long as you don't close your browser before you hit submit, you can do that in one session. And then new this year, we did start an equity survey, but we have revised it this year. So you will be asked to participate in a voluntary optional student equity survey, which aligns with the University of Toronto's student equity survey that was launched this year. So none of the admission decisions are related to this survey, and it's totally anonymous. But it is part of our equity, diversity, and inclusion charter. It helps us to assess who is applying and to assess about the selection process of our REACH cohort. So we do highly encourage everyone to participate in the student equity survey for these reasons. And then once submitted, everyone that has submitted a paper application will get a response by May 13th. And then interviews will start. So there are up to 3 rounds of interviews. So if you're successful candidates, you will get invitation for the next round. So the first 2 rounds are in over Zoom online, and with the potential of the third one, because it's a group interview being in person this year, we're going to see how it goes. But I know someone was asking about that question as well. So as an international student, we will find accommodations. If the third one is in person, we'll try to do a session online. But yes, you can participate in the recruitment interviews through the Zoom. And then the pitching sessions over the summer are also online, because everyone is doing student placements or work placements in different places. So we will probably do them online. But then in the actual program, once school starts, we do that in hybrid form. We do workshops in person, and then our partners and anybody else that can't join in person can participate on Zoom. I do encourage everyone to also look at the critical pathway. So this explores kind of, once the final 32 researchers are selected by the end of June, then we will begin the orientation sessions, and once teams are formed, there's training camp, and when the research process happens. So there's some key critical timelines that you can look on the website under the REACH research process to learn. So we'll go into Q&A right now. We have lots of questions here popping in. Let me just see the questions that have come here. Kanishka, one of the first questions was about how much time should a student expect to commit to the REACH process? So can you speak about how much time you managed to put?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I would compare it akin to like a part-time job. The reason I'd say that is I'd say throughout the program, I was probably working on this project about 10-15 hours a week. Definitely during the REB protocol, as well as during the writing of the case study, was a bit more, is quite intensive. I know some folks were putting in more hours than me. I know some folks were putting in less. I think it just depends on the way you work. But I would definitely consider, if you are applying to REACH, which all of you probably are, to think about which sort of commitments you can forego next year if you are selected to be part of Reach, because it will just be too much on your plate to try to actually balance a part-time job and Reach and your schoolwork. And so I think that one of the recommendations that I can't remember who it was, but when I was applying was to think about Reach as, if you're saying yes to Reach, you're saying no to a few different things. And that's just a way for you to maximize all that Reach has to offer, especially the workshops and the learning series and the coaching. So I'd say for me, it was about 10, 15 hours a week.
Yes, and Kanishka, you are also part of 2 case studies at one point, so I think that's also why it took more. But we do, it varies. It depends on what else is on your plate, but also how your group is organized. And we've heard up to, from 4 to 10 hours, and it depends on the flow. So during peak times, you will be putting in more hours, especially pitching. You're going to have to be doing lots of research. You're going to be preparing your pitches. I think research ethics application time is also another peak time because it's time sensitive and lots of energy around there. And then during data collection for sure, in terms of booking and stuff. So I think it ebbs and flows, but many have said think of it as equivalent to a course, because there are meetings with your team member, meetings with your faculty mentor, meetings as well with your team performance coach. And then we offer a whole suite of skills development workshops. So in kind of the whole realm of all the programming that is available to you, we do want people to be available, have bandwidth in their schedule to participate, to join the community events and learn together. So that is part of our process. So one of the questions here is, will there be any in-person field research that will happen in the upcoming research cycle? Our answer is we really hope so, but we've learned from the last 2 years that we've had to pivot. And actually what's unique about Reach is that even though we weren't able to go in the field internationally, we're still able to find ways to conduct the research and have impact. And Kanishka can tell you, because she was on 2 teams that was able to still produce high quality case studies and do the research, and be able to add that on the resume. Some programs just were not able to go internationally at all and lost out on an opportunity. So, and weren't able to even count it or develop any of those skill sets. So we're thankful that more than, especially in this time in which many social inequities have come to bear during the pandemic, that we realize the importance of our work and the importance of continuing to press on. And our researchers have been so flexible and agile to be able to adjust and troubleshoot in this cycle. So depending on the University of Toronto, travel advisories and what's happening, we follow all of the guidelines. But so we're optimistic for next year, but we don't know. Hope that answers that question. What does the annotative transcript entail? I think we've answered that. That is the 5 courses that you you choose, and you tell us your story of why you chose that or what you've learned from it. Sometimes you may have a course on your transcript, your grades are low, but there's a story in which you can say, I'm a hard scientist, but I took this humanities course in religion and my grades weren't great, but I really learned so much about it and I took the risk. So we don't know. It's a matter of telling us your narrative, telling us how you're learning and why you choose the courses that you do, and that it's not just for the grades, but if there's a learning process that you learned, is what we want to learn more about you. We are selecting 32 researchers. We'll have 18s this year as well. So that is the number of applicants, of selections that we will make. Can this opportunity be used in resume, CVs, applications for grad school? Kanishka, I think you're the perfect person to answer this.
Yeah, I think definitely, especially if you're coming into Reach with less research experience. If you're applying for graduate school, you do want to be able to emphasize the research you've done. I think what Reach will give you that many research projects won't is that you are leading, so you're not a research assistant, you're a researcher, and you're also leading the design of the research ethics protocol, which would be essential in most graduate research programs. And so, I think that I can't remember exactly the student name. I believe it's Kimberly Skeed. She's another alumnus, and she really recommended actually in your CV under Reach putting in those specific things that you've done in the program, so that you've devised the research ethics protocol, that you've participated in primary research, et cetera, because a lot of research projects may seem like research assistant projects, but this one is actually more of you taking a primary role in that project. So I think most definitely, even if not graduate school, if you're applying for other positions as well, this is very much a leadership role that you should be emphasizing.
Absolutely, yeah. People have gotten interviews with jobs and internships through it, and I think it is important skill set and opportunity to highlight. This opportunity is for any U of T student. It's not just for international students. Domestic students can apply. So I hope that has clarified that this is for any student. It is an international research experience. So you do get a chance to research and examine a global issue, but there's no division between the type of students that can apply to Reach. The time commitment for during the summer is we are expecting, it's outlined in the Reach process, in which those that are selected participate in the pitching process, and that happens over the summer. So there's a weekly pitching process, and then when you're preparing your pitch, it'd be all the time needed to prepare the pitch. So I'm not sure what to really say. There's no set time, but the pitching process are about 3 hours a week, and then whatever preparation for pitching is needed, and then the time for orientation as well. So it varies, but please look at our website in terms of getting some key dates and ideas of how to be available over the summer. Now, for the first year students, it says don't have all 5 courses with grades released by Sunday. What should I do? Just submit your transcript as it is. We can at least see your courses on there, and then you can include those courses in your annotated transcript. And then if needed, we may ask for grades after the fact, but right now it's not important. We would just like to see your courses that you've taken. And this last question here is, will I be able to apply as an exchange student for winter 2023 if I'm going to be in the country region of analysis that I want to pitch as part of my research prompt? That's a good question. Usually our standard, from our experience of having students that have been exchange students in the past when travel was possible, was that it didn't always work out because of the teamwork. So, and being in different time zones and then different opportunities. So, but if the country is is part of your case study and it's part of the pitch, could be a possibility, but I don't really know, because right now everything is up in the air. We don't know if travel will be included. You don't know if your pitch is going to be successful and people are going to be voting on it. So there's a lot of unknowns. But usually our standard answer is we don't allow for exchange students to be part of Reach because it's too divided in terms of your time and interest. Are students on co-op term considered full-time students? Yes, you don't have to be a full-time student. You can be a part-time student as long as you're just registered for the full academic year. The only thing with co-op students is there's a lot of group work and workshops that we have available, and it's usually during the daytime. So it might be difficult to coordinate and find time if you're working 9 to 5 with other students whose schedules are more flexible. So that would be my only kind of scheduling challenge. And then I just want to ask one last thing to wrap up. Kanishka, what was your favorite non-research related memory of Reach?
I think I need to think about that. Um, I don't want to be basic and say the symposium, but it was kind of I'm gonna say two. One was when we were switching online, and this was in the summer of 2020, where I was on the partnership with ITESO University project, and we had a meeting with everyone, and Joe was there too, and it was like we were having like this like creative session, like this kind of working session where we were really trying to think about like the impact we were trying to make with our work. Like everyone was going around sharing, and it was less like we were trying to, create answers for what to do and more just exploring possibilities. It was just a very, this was all like people also like in policy, and very like well-known folks who were just very, very humbly asking as student researchers what it was that we desired and hoped and were looking for in this work. So that was one. But also during the symposium, I can't feel like I can't pick one, but there was a session with a bunch of student alumnus researchers, and they were recounting their experiences, and I remember just how vividly how everybody was kind of coming back to and referring back to the student experience. And I've been on many different research projects, and I feel like there's students are treated as a kind of back thought, or as secondary to the primary work, or the primary session. Like you invite speakers, right, and it's mostly renowned speakers and less the students themselves. That's an example when folks are speaking, but Reach is really trying to amplify student experiences. And I remember that very vividly because that was also a time I was just getting used to Reach too. So those are two memories that have stayed with me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Kanishka. So I think we're at time, and for any additional questions, please send me an email. My email is, you can, through the Reach Alliance, the email address is there. And I'll send a follow-up email as well where you can reach out and respond. But thank you so much. It's been such an engaging discussion, and Kanishka really, if Kanishka can do case studies during the heart of the pandemic and get it and use it and get into a PhD program and continue the work, I think the hope is there for anyone to be involved. And if you're passionate enough and you're willing, and this really aligns to your interests and your desire to develop your leadership skills and to be in the driver's seat of your own research and professional development, we welcome you to apply. Applications are due on Sunday. So, and maybe you'll see Kanishka in the recruitment interviews. She loves to meet everyone and is great at participating and being part of the conversations with new applicants. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Kanishka, for sharing your experiences, and we wish you good luck this year in your first year of your PhD. You're completing your first year, right? Going into year 2. So
yeah, very, very exciting. Thanks so much for having me and for everyone joining.
yes.
I'll put my email in the chat just in case
Sure.
you want to ask any questions. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you at the symposium.